Today I'm going to show you quick how to make the perfect tenon that'll hold your piece on the lathe and you won't have any issues with that piece flying across the room. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Trent Bosch, Trent Bosch Tools, and today I want to just talk a little bit about tenons. They're one of those parts of your piece. If you're using a chuck, you need a really good tenon. That way that piece will be held on the lathe properly and you won't have any issues with your pieces coming off the machine. So I just want to show you the few things that I really pay attention to when I'm developing a tenon. When I start with a tenon, there's a couple of different types of woods I use, end grain, face grain. The tenon is still good, the shape of the tenon is going to be the same. I have an end grain piece on here just to quickly show you today how I'm going to do a tenon on there. I go ahead and develop my tenon pretty early on in the process. I'll round out that piece, try and get rid of any bark or whatever I'm trying to clean up and get rid of, and then I'll go straight after the tenon. And then I'll do maybe a little bit of shaping before I flip it around and put it in the chuck. And other times not. Other times I'll just flip it around, put it in the chuck, and do my shaping when I'm in the chuck. So when I look at a chuck, what I generally do is I open it up into a certain diameter that I feel is about right for those jaws to work. These jaws are machined as a solid piece of steel, so when they're closed down pretty close to their smallest dimension is when they're their strongest. So when this is closed down, it's going to give me the nice circular shape of that tenon that we're going to be creating, and we're going to get a lot of surface area contact on those jaws. If we were to scroll this out too far, all that's going to do, and this chuck is quite adjustable, all that's going to dig into that tenon that we create are these 8 points, and that's not going to be a whole lot of holding power. So much prefer to kind of close that jaw down, and I usually go about 1/4 of an inch between the jaws. Once I get this to about 1/4 inch between those jaws, then I can take a tape measure and just kind of measure across those jaws, and it looks like about 2 1/4 inches across there is going to be ideal for this particular jaw. And so that's the diameter that I want to make this particular tenon on my piece. So let's go ahead and figure out that diameter here first. So let's just go ahead and start to develop our tenon. What I do to do that, I'm using my swept back grind bowl gouge, and I'm just making about a 90-degree angle with that bevel on my tool and the surface here. And that way when I start to cut in here, I'm creating a nice flat edge, which is going to be helpful for the next step that we're doing. And we'll take that down to about 2 1/4. I usually just eye it. It doesn't need to be perfect. It looks like we're pretty close right there. And then after I've got that diameter nailed down, then I want to pay attention to a couple of other things. The jaws that we have in these chucks have a dovetail shape to them. So that dovetail shape is something I want to mimic in my tenon. So let's go ahead and grab another tool to get that dovetail shape. So on this bowl gouge, it's pretty difficult for me to use this tool to create that dovetail shape because it's a really good tool for general stuff. But when it comes to that final kind of detail type stuff on a tenon, it's not pointy enough to allow me to do that with this particular tool. So I switch tools to this fingernail grind spindle gouge, and that allows me to get down in there and create the detail that I'm after in this particular tenon. So let's go ahead and turn this back on. I'm going to set the heel of the bevel down, bring my tool around till that tip starts to cut. Kind of take it right down in there, and then let's start on the outside here. Take that right down, kind of meet in the middle. And basically what I have there is a nice dovetail shape that's going to work great with my tenon. I like to check that dovetail shape and that flat surface that I created and make sure that they're both matching up really good. So this is just basically a copy or a duplicate of the jaw that's on my chuck. And we manufacture these tenon gauges here. And it's got that same shape as my jaw. I can set it on my tenon and I can kind of look and see what's going on. First thing I really like is there's a nice flat spot on that face of there that is registering up really good against that piece of wood. And my dovetail shape is pretty darn close to being the right shape to match that dovetail shape of my jaw. The other thing that I got going on here that's working good is it's not bottoming out against the bottom of this jaw either. I've still got a gap, I've still got some space there so that that's not going to kick it off. Should that have been too long, then the face of this won't butt up against that nice flat spot that I created for it. And so the combination of all those things will really give us a nice tenon. I didn't take any material off the back of this. I could true it up if I would like, just to make it look nicer, but it's not a necessary thing to do. Let's go ahead and go through that process real quick again, and I'll take a little bit off the back to just show you how I do that as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is start this cut, kind of cut straight down, close to the diameter that I'm after as far as the tenon is concerned. I'm going to switch to my little spindle gouge, which is going to allow me to kind of clean that face off. So I'm riding that bevel on that tool, and then I'm going to bring my tool over here, ride the bevel on this in this direction as well. And I go back and forth between those two until I get just a nice sharp little point in there so that my there's not a radius in there that's going to bug my jaws for making good contact. And since this tenon is really long, now you see that the face of my jaw isn't going to register up against that nice flat spot I created. So we need to remove some material from back here. And to do that, I like to go back to my bowl gouge. Take that down, and then let's double check again. See where we're at. Yeah, now we have plenty of material away from there, and we should be good to go. I could make my tenon a little bit longer if I wanted to use more of my jaw, but it's not totally necessary. I'm going to get a really good hold for this particular piece with this tenon that I have on here. And if you go all the way, it's not going to hurt anything as long as it's not buttoned up against this surface and not letting that surface make contact with what you're doing. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of an understanding of those several things that I pay attention to when I'm developing a tenon on my piece. And hopefully you never have a piece fly off the lathe again and your tenons hold strong. If you have any questions about anything, don't hesitate to let me know. Happy to help. Feel free to subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next time.